Guys, welcome back to Irish Footy Vlogs. Welcome back to another video of mine. This video is to discuss the takeover plans at Drogheda United and whether I personally think it's a good idea or not. Will it go ahead or not is the other question as well. I believe votes have to be in by Monday. I think it's by Monday. You can do it various ways. I think you can do it online. You can do it at the football club. The match tonight. This video will be out before the match tonight. Drogheda and Shelbourne. I'll be at that match, by the way, as well, and incidentally vlogging it. But I was very interested in going to this meeting and to kind of gauge, obviously, listen to see what the guys had to say. Now, Joanne Byrne was up there, of course, chairperson of Drogheda United. Conor Hoey, the former chairperson, was up there as well, but he's been involved in this, in the discussions with the takeover, etc., heavily. And two members of the Travella group that, of course, are at Walsall as well. They're essentially the owners at Walsall as well. Were there too, and it was the first time that Drogheda United fans got to have a Q&A basically with these guys, and I was very interested to gauge fan reaction, and I would say the fan reaction was probably mixed, judging by the people that spoke and asked questions and stuff like that. And I'll get into it in a while, but obviously there's people very wary of this, and I can understand that as well. The two guys, Benjamin Boycott is one of the guys. He's going to be co-person basically with Joanne Byrne, co-chairperson, I should say, with Joanne Byrne, co-person. And he's involved in Walsall in a very similar role as well. He's Canadian. Wesley Hill is American. He's an executive director, and apparently he's going to see the day-to-day operations at the club as well. So those two guys were there. They were taking questions. They were speaking. They were giving their input, and I have to say decent knowledge on Drogheda as well. This has been going on though for the last year or so. The discussions with Drogheda United Football Club, who've spoken to other investors and stuff, and they've done their due diligence on this, and they've been over to Walsall, etc. I think Conor Hoey was over at Walsall actually, looking how they seeing how the operations worked over there, and look, they were impressed with that. Yeah, they were impressed with that. So look, the way I see it, I suppose, overall, as I say, the fan reaction was mixed, and some people were, essentially wondering why they were taking over Drogheda, etc. And I suppose queried, any investor wants to make money, so they queried how are they going to make money out of Drogheda United? No one's ever made money out of a League of Ireland club. It's a fair point. It is a fair point, I have to say. And ultimately, they don't know that. If we're honest about it, they will not know that. You can't. None of us have a crystal ball, to be fair. But I suppose the one thing from my point of view that I would say about it is that the process that they plan to put into it is, this is a new owners coming in and basically saying, we want to win the Premier Division title within 2 years, and that's it, like, kind of a thing. That's what we want to do. I think, in a sense, anyone can come into Ireland with a bag of money, to be honest with you, take over a club and win the Premier Division title in 3 or 4 years. I don't think it's that hard, believe it or not. It's not. It really isn't, and we've seen that in the past. Look, their neighbours, Dundalk, for example. Dundalk are actually an interesting case study, funnily enough, when you talk about this as well, and I'll get into that as well in a couple of minutes. But look, they just see an opportunity in Ireland, a growing town in Drogheda. Drogheda is a massive town. You have to remember that Drogheda is it's the biggest town in Ireland. I believe it's going to be changed to a city, isn't it, soon as well? But it's the biggest town in Ireland. It's it's in a good area, as in, look, you've got Dundalk up the road, you've got the Dublin teams down the other road. But anywhere within Drogheda, who are you going to support if you're interested in League of Ireland? Drogheda. So if you're in Drogheda, you're supporting Drogheda. If you're in Dublin, you could support any of the clubs in many ways. Like, I mean, I'm from Ashbourne, for example, and I'm close to Bohemians, but I support St. Patrick's Athletic, you know what I mean? So, it has that Drogheda. It always has that, and there's always a feeling, for my opinion anyway. There's always a feeling that Drogheda could be bigger. There's a massive community there. And it goes beyond Drogheda, Duleek, Mornington, Laytown, all that area around Meath as well can be harnessed. So there's loads of football fans that support Drogheda that are from Meath, even if you're from Navan, believe it or not. So, there's Drogheda and there's a big area around that for Drogheda to really expand. They can't do that at United Park, in my opinion. United Park, let's be real, it's falling down. There's no point bullshitting about it. It is falling down. I love these League of Ireland grounds and the charm they have. Um, that does, what I mean. There is something in that, but with United Park, it's too far. Um, they can't. They have to move ground. There is no doubt about it. They have to move ground. If they want to develop as a club, they have to move ground because you can't do any proper work there, basically. You can't. I mean, look, you've got the Windmill Road. There's a tiny bit of space there because of the car park. Apart from that, you've got lanes, no space there. You've got the GAA behind, no space there. And you've got a housing estate, and the wall is very close to the goal, basically. There's no space to do up United Park. So the romantic idea of staying in United Park, which some people may have, it can't happen. It can happen, but it can happen in the first division, being a part-time club, um, or even worse, amateur. Do you know what I mean? And you can stay in United Park, and there's no hope for the club to develop in any sense of the word. So that's an option, I suppose, isn't it? It's an option. But then you get less crowds, blah 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 blah. The club don't do as well. So look, there's a lot of people that are fearful of any investment coming in. And as I said, Drogheda have looked at other investors, and even Joanne mentioned it, I think, last night. As far as I remember, she said she spoke to other investors, and you just get that feeling with them that no, basically, and which is a good thing, by the way, because you can nearly take any investor that comes in. Oh, the first investor comes in, we'll take them. You know what I mean? But no, they've really done their homework on this, and they've been working hard for the last year. Um, and spoiler, I've known about this for the last year, that they were talking with these guys as well, but I didn't say anything about it publicly, to be fair. But I have known about this, so I kind of have an idea what's been going on there, to be honest. But back to the United Park thing. Without these investors, I know they've a site earmarked, etc., etc. But obviously, without the investors, there has to be a vote and they have to get in or not. But if they don't get in, they can't go ahead with the plans for the new ground. And without investors, they can't get a new ground. They can't get a new ground. They have to get a new ground for me. Drogheda has so much potential as well. I mean, if they had a new ground and they were in the Premier Division, particularly, in time they could easily get 4,000 or 5,000 in. I mean, I'm looking at the club I support, St. Patrick's Athletic, for example. St. Patrick's Athletic, people didn't think they would, but they're getting 5,000 in most of their games now. Now, St. Patrick's Athletic are part of Dublin. They're based in Inchicore. But funnily enough, I don't know too many St. Patrick's Athletic fans who are from Inchicore. So they're getting people from different areas of Dublin. I know Lucan and things like that, and even parts of Kildare, believe it or not, as well. But you wouldn't have thought a couple of years ago that St. Patrick's Athletic, I know Dublin's I know it's a city, but there's 3 other clubs there. There's 4 actually with UCD, but you know what I mean. The Shamrock Rovers, Bohemians, and Shelburne. So there's some big teams there, big clubs. And they're getting a crowd like that. Now, could you imagine Drogheda United, their own individual town? There's no challenge in terms of in around the town to support somebody else. And I mentioned before the other areas around Meath and that kind of thing as well. And, even slightly out of town as well, up the other way. So, you can imagine the potential that Drogheda has in that sense. And, that club could be a massive part of the community. It is a big part of the community, but it could be bigger. The potential is there for it to be bigger. But you need a new ground to do that. You need a team that's in the Premier Division, I think, long term to do that. And simply the club as a whole has to move forward. Otherwise, it gets left behind. I mean, if you look at it at the moment, they finished 7th this year, which was a brilliant position. Part-time team. Great core group of players that work very hard for each other, and a good manager, and the club are tight knit. But how long does anyone keep punching above their weight? It's very difficult to do that before you get caught out. Very difficult to do that. We see it all the time. We see it all the time. Look at Burnley, for example, in the Premier League. I know they're back there now, but for a long time they really punched above their weight. But eventually they went down, didn't they? Probably go down again. That's another thing. Ironically, same colours as these fellas here. Um, but how long do you do that? And with teams like Galway coming up, full-time team, um, even next year it's difficult. Drogheda may even be the only team that's part-time as such. But the model they have, and we'll go back to this with the potential new owners, is that slow and steady progress, which is the best way. I'll go back to that case study he was talking about Dundalk. Now, Dundalk has obviously owners that came in, spent a lot of money, but they spent it on the playing staff pretty much immediately. They had great success, yes, league titles. They had great success in Europe, yes, fantastic. But look at them now. Look at Oriel Park. Look at the money they brought in to the club. They did nothing with Oriel Park, not a thing with Oriel Park. Now, at the moment, they're scrambling for new owners, whereas Drogheda have had this planned out from a distance from a while ago, you know? So what's going to happen with Dundalk? We don't know. They're scrambling at this minute in time. But what's their legacy? Do you know what I mean? They've not poor facilities, very poor ground, arguably worse actually than United Park, and particularly if you bring into context the money they've had. What's their legacy? At least with Drogheda, the owners coming in, their idea is look, a couple of years, professional players, slow and steady. We'll look at the operation, see how things are going. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to look to move to, and seriously look, not just talk, like it's already earmarked. The plan is there to move to a new ground. That cements more of a legacy. Even if Drogheda didn't win a trophy in the next 10 years, if that's what they had, that's a better legacy, in my opinion, going forward. And then that gives you an opportunity, a better opportunity now to get into a position where you can sustainably challenge maybe at the top end of the league, rather than having this dip that you're successful, all the money's putting in the playing side. The owners from Dundalk, as I say, pull out, and now where does it leave them? Do you know what I mean? So to me, in my opinion, that side of it is, I would, if I was a Drogheda fan and just as a league fan, I mean, I want to see progress in this league. I want to see every team have better facilities, better grounds. Better facilities offers more options in terms of what you can do in terms of events and stuff like that. That gives you a better chance of making money also. Um, look at Tallaght Stadium as an example. Like, they're getting Irish international stuff. Like, there was so much things you can do, little concerts, there could be anything, like, you know what I mean? And, I think Walsall have setups there and very good catering services, and all this adds to a product and brings more people in, hence more money. So that's the point as well. So I'd be voting yes. I would actually urge Drogheda fans or any fan in the league, if this is their club, to vote yes. The alternative is, if they don't get investors in, and the right investors, and you have to remember, just to go back quickly, take a deep dive and look at Walsall. Look at Walsall. So at least there's something there to look at and compare. These aren't investors coming in out of nowhere and aren't involved, haven't been involved with the club. And Walsall fans are very happy with them. The Walsall crew, if you like, the chairperson at Walsall, etc., is very happy. That's a big thing as well. You could get investors from anywhere that there's no real background as such in the footballing side of things. That happens. So at least there's a footballing background there with them as well, that they can bring that experience to Drogheda. But as I said, I'd be urging people to vote yes. I'd be urging Drogheda fans to vote yes. This is your club. It's your town. It's the alternative. And this is a point that's been missed, I think, last night. A little bit's been missed by a lot of the fans that were kind of a bit questionable, which I understand, by the way. But what is the alternative here? Get no investors, right? United Park gets into an even worse state than it already is. You eventually will end up in the first division. You won't get out of the first division. Part-time, there's some full-time teams in the first division, and there will be full-time teams in the first division. And worse, they could go amateur. So the fear of the club, say, going under, well, the club is in big trouble if it doesn't get investors. This is the point as well. And as I said, this isn't a quick fix. This isn't a quick, like with Dundalk, money, 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 win league titles, goodbye. This is a slow process, a development process with a club that has potential to be massive, in my opinion. A potential to be massive, absolutely huge. It's there. You can see it with your eyes, like it's there, but it needs the right opportunities to get there. The ground is a massive thing, I would think. The ground is a massive thing, for all clubs really in this league. But it's how the league develops, and obviously Drogheda is a part of that. So, I mean, a few questions. There were a few funny questions last night, in my opinion, as well. I thought around kind of interference with the management, let's say Kevin Doherty or whatever, and picking teams and stuff like that. Um, um, again, ask Walsall. You know what I mean? Do they go and pick the team there? Look, no manager's going to put up with that. No manager's going to put up with anyone coming in telling them how to pick a team and how their tactics are run, etc., etc. That's just not going to happen. Now there is an interesting debate about the recruitment process, and I know some Drogheda fans fear that there'd be a feeder club to Walsall. I don't like using the term feeder club, but there's things that are going to happen that are obviously going to happen. I mean, there's a good chance Drogheda are going to get some young players from Walsall on loan. That's not necessarily a bad thing, is it? If you look at some of the young players that Drogheda have brought in alone over the last few seasons, like Sam Long, Freddie Draper, IU was another one, for example, and they've all been successes, haven't they? So that's not a bad thing. I don't see that as a bad thing. Nor do I see the idea of a young player Drogheda going to Walsall, signing for Walsall. Um, because if you're a young player in the league, let alone Drogheda, if you're a young player in the league, as I said, let alone Drogheda, and you're good enough to play in England, you're going to move there. So if it's not Walsall, it's going to be somebody else. You know what I mean? At that level, it's just a case of Walsall will get first dibs at that player. Um, and I think the financial side of things in that way might be more favourable to Drogheda as well, actually. But I don't see an issue around that. Like you can call it feeder club or not feeder club. It can work for both clubs as such. And as I said, if there's a young player good enough for Drogheda, he's going to move to England anyway, or wherever. Like you know what I mean. We've seen it before, like with any player. Like you know what I mean. Um, so I don't see an issue there at all. In terms of the recruitment, apart from that, um, the vibe I got was as well that aside from that, Kevin Doherty will have last say in players that come into the club and stuff like that. I'm sure he won't mind players being recommended to him. Because let's be real, most of our managers don't know players abroad, who they are, what they are. It's more around the league. And that's why a lot of the time when we see players coming in for abroad, they generally don't do that well. Because they're kind of supplied by agents and stuff like that. And that's the difficulty. But with Walsall, you're almost using their scouting network to a degree, in a sense, the way Hull are with Shelburne. And to be honest, Shelburne have got some decent players from that, to be honest, as well. So that's something to look at too. But the other thing as well, I think people were a bit concerned about maybe the grounds being stripped of their assets, but they're going to be protected. So that's not an issue either. To be fair, that's not an issue either. That's the current ground and the new ground. So there's not much you can say about that. You have to take their word for that as well, and that's something. Another thing as well, just to throw it out there as well, is that they'd be 100% in ownership of the club. And I know people get fearful about that. They're going to be 100% ownership of the club. But they kind of have to be. They kind of have to be, don't they? Let's be real. But they're still keeping the people that work day to day and volunteers and on the ground and put in all this work and the passionate Drogheda people, fans, and they're still keeping them at the club. They're going to be at the club. So, you've got that balance as well in play as well. So I think, guys, I've covered everything. I don't want to waffle on and start repeating myself. I think I've covered everything. Personally, I would be voting yes. I would urge Drogheda fans to vote yes. What's the alternative? The alternative is very scary. There's a risk with everything. Nobody knows, no matter what we do, nobody knows what the future is going to hold. So I would say if you're a Drogheda fan, you want the club to develop, you really want the club to develop, vote yes. You know, the club, as I said before, I'll just finish on this. As I said before, what's the alternative? Think about that for a minute. I'll leave it there, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed before. It's free. And that's it. See you later.